in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Sandeep, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. On behalf of Cognizant and assetSERV, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone for what promises to be a very interesting webinar. And it is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers for today. Our first speaker is Ben Pring. Ben is the co-author of a book on code halos and co-leads Cognizant's Future of Work Center. Here he helps clients see around corners, think the unthinkable, and calculate, in his words, the compound annual growth rate of unintended consequences. Ben is based near Boston, Massachusetts. Our second speaker for today is Jitin Agarwal, venture leader for assetSERV. Jit brings with him 20 plus years of product and program management experience and has had a successful record as a serial entrepreneur. Jit is based in Los Angeles, California. And for our attendees for today's webinar, I would encourage you to please type in your questions in the chat window that you see on the bottom right hand side of your screen to make this an interactive session. And the agenda for today's webinar is we're going to be having Ben kicking off and talking about the concept and background of code halos and what does it mean for organizations. And then we're going to be having Jit talking about the role and the relevance of DAM, specifically in code halos, and how to use DAM to enable or power code halos within the organization. And finally, we're going to be talking about getting started, with a maturity assessment. All right. With this, I'd like to hand it over to Ben. Ben, take it away.
Thank you, Sandeep. Well, hi, everybody. This is Ben Pring. Thank you so much for taking the time and the trouble to join Cognizant, whatever time of the day it is for you, wherever you might be around in the world. We really appreciate you doing that, and we hope you're going to find the next 45 minutes or so kind of interesting. Clearly, anybody who's following the technology and business market at the moment must have a sense there's an awful lot going on and a lot of exciting stuff going on. And I'm going to start with this thought here that really this is becoming the mantra for modern business in the way that we look at wave after wave of digitization, next generation digital technologies coming in to change how organizations do what they do. The whole notion of the digital customer experience is becoming key, as I put it here, to delight, engage, and I guess most importantly, monetize customers in the modern world. I mean, I think we probably all have a sense of that, both as individuals in how we act, how we interact, how we buy and sell, and think about our own personal lives, but also in the context of whatever it is our organizations do. One only has to look at the success of Apple as perhaps the ne plus ultra of, as I say, modern business at the moment to recognize that they've taken the way that they interact with their customers both in the virtual and the physical world really to another level. And the digital customer experience, be that as a retailer, be that as any type of organization, is really becoming crucial to differentiate yourself from the competition. As I say, I think that's becoming a pretty self-evident truth now that few people would disagree with. However, when you step back from that kind of aspiration that all modern businesses have, again, we all as individuals probably have a sense that many of the interactions we have with, the gas company or the airline company or with our bank or any type of organization is, frankly, at times pretty underwhelming. That digital customer experience is hardly an experience at all. And we here at Cognizant in the Center for the Future of Work have done some research, primary research recently to kind of look into that thesis that, we're all talking about where digital technology is taking us and the opportunities to really upgrade what we're offering our customers, offering our employees, offering our partners, offering everybody within our ecosystem. But really, we're kind of struggling to get there. And if you pause and look at this data in front of you right now, this is a kind of sobering reality, I always think, when I look at it. It's kind of a wake-up call for us that we went out into the market and spoke to 300-odd organizations within the States, within Western Europe primarily, to ask people, executives in charge of the digital initiatives within their organizations, so the people running, the digital kind of project within a bank or an airline or a government organization, to self-rate how they thought the experience they were offering their customers currently was. And you can see here that in the darker blue box, only 3% of these people we spoke to thought that the digital customer experience they were offering at the moment was any good, was really, first class, was really truly differentiating in the marketplace. And if you project that forward, the lighter blue box is in 3 years' time, even with all, the ways of investment and spending and time and effort and TLC going into these projects, even in 3 years' time, that dial is only really going to nudge toward a pretty insubstantial amount, to about 14%. When you step back from that, it strikes us that, to leverage an old phrase, Houston, we have a problem. Because, and this is where we get into our sense of really what's going on in the marketplace at the moment, new technologies are transforming work at a increasingly fast pace and in an increasingly material way. If you're familiar with Cognizant, if you're working with Cognizant and have some sense of the way that we've thought about this for a while, you may have heard the phrase the smack stack before. The smack stack to us is the combination, the confluence of social technology, mobile as the kind of new next generation platform in which we're delivering a mobile first experience to people, analytics, aka big data, driving a lot of the personalization that we're going to come on to talk about in a moment, that is at the heart of that digital customer experience. And then this all really running off a cloud platform. SMAC, which has been around obviously for a number of years, all those different ingredients, all those different elements have been in the marketplace for a long period of time. But now they've sort of collided, have become mutually reinforcing. They all work in a stack, and hence why we call it the SMAC stack. And they are really changing every aspect of how businesses conduct pretty much every aspect of their business process architecture. It isn't just now the cloud as a cost takeout in the back office, in the kind of data center. It's cloud as being the platform with these new layers of UI on top of them to really kind of talk to the customer, to engage in the customer, to monetize the customer in a totally different way. There's a lady called Mary Meeker, who's one of the doyens of Silicon Valley, who put it very well a year or so ago, where she says that because of this increasing force of next generation technology, everything is up for grabs again. And just look at the quote here. I'll read it to you. I'm sure you've read ahead of me, but we're in an era where we're reimagining nearly everything, powered by the new devices, the iPhones, the tablets, everything we've got, plus the connectivity of the cloud, plus the new UI, the new user interface that we're kind of familiar with in our personal lives, the things that we like in our personal lives, which are now seeping into our business lives more. Plus, and this to me is always the key kind of word in this little quote, and it's a bit odd to talk about sometimes in a sort of business conference or a business webinar like this, but really is, when you think about it and step back from it, really is the heart of Apple's success. It's the beauty, not only of the physical device, but of the digital experience, and in fact the omni-channel experience you have moving between an Apple store and the actual phone or the Mac that you're using. The way that omni-channel experience is all predicated on what Sir Johnny Ive really brought to the table, this emphasis on the beauty of that experience. And as I step back from that and think about that as a kind of futurist, somebody thinking about where technology is going, where business is going, that to me is really the crucial task, the crucial challenge, the crucial opportunity that we all have to inject beauty into whatever it is we do. I mean, it sounds kind of absurd, but could our expense management system be beautiful? You know, people laugh at that, but then I think, well, why not? Why can't we take all of this generation flavor of technology into every aspect of what it is we do? So when you sort of look at that and pause and think about that, that's sort of great, really exciting, and also terrifying, because you know there's so much we could potentially do, and we're in this kind of boil the ocean moment. And I think this is where we feel in Cognizant a lot of organizations are currently, that they can see a huge wave of change coming on. They can see a lot of their underlying technology is sort of increasingly unfit for purpose. But then thinking about how we move forward, how we kind of take incremental, logical, sequential steps to mitigate risk. You know, we don't want to screw up and waste money, but we know we've got to do pretty big fundamental things. That's the sort of, you know, deer in the headlights sensation that we feel going out and talking to a lot of people at the moment about these ideas and these trends that they have. And so this leads us into this sort of crucial moment that a lot of organizations, a lot of markets are in at the moment, where there's almost a crossroads ahead. And there's a crossroads in which, you know, the decisions one makes today are going to be determinants between, you know, a next wave of incredible opportunity. You see the sort of valuations that, you know, Apple and Netflix and even the next generation of companies like Uber are generating in the marketplace, and they're obviously generating and capturing incredible prosperity, incredible opportunity ahead. And you know, again, as a futurist, I'm very excited about that. But at the same time, one can't also see that there's a path ahead which really sort of makes companies increasingly irrelevant in the marketplace, organizations increasingly irrelevant. If you can't sort of keep up with this change, can't get ahead of this change, then you know there's going to be tough road ahead. And it was all of that really that set us to think a year or so ago, 18 months or so ago, in the Center for the Future of Work here at Cognizant, about, well, how do we capitalize on the digital opportunity? How do we sort of mitigate risk but really go after this in a material way? And this is where the idea of code halos came to us. And this is an idea which, when you sort of understand it, and I'll talk a little bit about this obviously, it's a very simple idea, but it's actually a very simple idea that's very, very powerful. And it's an idea that's sort of so simple and so powerful that we had a sense that a lot of people were overlooking exactly what was going on in the marketplace and how relevant this was going to be to lots of businesses, lots of organizations, lots of enterprises all around the world. And this idea came to us really thinking about what was going on in the marketplace based on this notion of SMAC, social, mobile, analytics, and cloud, and what people are increasingly calling the consumerization of IT, this idea that the technology we use in our sort of personal private lives on a Sunday night, if you like, is better than a lot of the technology we're using on a Monday morning, which is the sort of traditional enterprise, big grown-up computing. And this dynamic's been happening for a little while, but it's become kind of more and more real for people. And the idea of code halos grew from our own personal experiences. I'm sure experiences you've had as well, that when you go on things like Pandora or Spotify or Netflix or Twitter or Amazon, somehow these organizations are almost reading your mind. You know, they're almost like a clairvoyant. And we started thinking about that, and we realized that in fact, they do know us. These organizations sort of do know us in a way because of the code halo that we all generate through our digital interactions. And this is a kind of little funny sort of rendering of my code halo. This idea that every digital touch, every digital kind of transaction, every digital browse or like or physical movement, everything I like, everything about me is now swirling around me as an individual in code. And people can capture that code, can look at that code, can understand that code, and make sense of the experience, the digital customer experience that I want to have. They can see the sort of movies I like, and consequently they can sort of see the sort of movies you like. And this, of course, is at the heart of that Netflix experience, that Pandora experience, where you tell them a few things about yourself through the digital interaction, and suddenly you have this curated experience, this personalized experience, this experience that is totally different for me than it is for you. And that is really at the heart of a very, very powerful new trend that is really not just confined to the book-selling experience, where it starts in the sort of world of Amazon. That isn't the end of this story. This is simply the beginning of a completely new story, because that technology, the personalization that's driven out of that kind of algorithm understanding, is now diffusing out into the real world because of the fact that every piece of the real world is becoming IP addressable. Everything that is becoming more and more diffused, which was originally in a data center, was then in a sort of a laptop, now is seeping out through your phone, through your tablet, through your wearables, and then next generation wearables like the glasses that Sergey Brin is wearing here on the underground, on the subway in New York. And a lot of people obviously looked at the sort of road bumps that Google Glass is having and thinking that's the end of the story. But again, that's absolutely not the end of the story. This is just a sort of development hiccup they're going through. But because of this diffusion of technology into the real world, a lot of people talk about the phrase the Internet of Things, we can now take the algorithms that have driven that sort of Amazon book retailing experience and put that into the real world. Now, anything can have a halo around it. So this is an example from GE, General Electric, where they're putting code halos around an aircraft engine, a turbine. So all of the engineers, all of the maintenance crew, all of the financing people can actually see the health of this thing and understand it in a way that previously has not been possible at all. They can sort of understand the engine in the way that Amazon can understand Ben Pring and understand what books I like and understand who I am and personalize the experience for me. So this idea of code halos is very, very powerful. And we've seen in the last year or so, as we've been talking about this, that more and more companies are making very significant bets on creating this personalization, both in the digital world, the pure digital kind of online experience, but also in the physical world. And here's a little example. Many of you may have been down to Disney over the summer and begun to see the Disney Magic Band, which is really, when you think about it, just a code halo mediated experience where rather than you going to the park and having exactly the same experience as everybody else, now you can begin to personalize it, and the park can begin to be personalized for you. And we're seeing lots of other examples of this. This is happening in insurance. Again, as another good example, some of you may know Progressive and the snapshot device. The snapshot device, which begins to personalize your insurance premium based on who you are, rather than you as an individual being lumped into an actuarial pool where your actual personal driving experience is really just only one marginal cell in a spreadsheet. Now you can get a very, very specific premium based on your actual driving behavior. And so you're no longer needing to subsidize all the terrible drivers out there if you're a good driver, because Progressive can actually see that you're a good driver. So this idea of code halos, which, as I said, is a very simple idea, and perhaps because it's so simple from the world of book selling and movie selling online, has sort of been overlooked. We think that because of this IoT trend and this mashup of the physical and the virtual world, that we're beginning to see this in more and more places. This is another example in London. Some of you may have been in a London black cab recently and seen Halo, which is kind of interesting that they touched on the same idea, a halo, as you're hailing a taxi, where a little bit like Uber, but I think maybe because I'm a Londoner, I think it's a lot better experience. You know, you hail a taxi, you get a taxi, you don't have to line up in the rain with everybody else, you don't have to stumble around in your pocket for change, you just order the taxi online, you get in the taxi, you get out of the taxi. That's a code halo experience in the way that we think about it, and it's absolutely fabulous. You may have had other experiences where you're beginning to sort of see this more and more in your everyday life, you know, paying with Square or paying with Apple Pay. And you're beginning to expect and differentiate on the sort of sublime experiences you have mediated by software. And then when you run into a non-code halo experience, like going to a bank, where, you know, it's the same ATM, the same cash machine you've been going to for a million years, and it still asks you, the first identifying question is, do you speak English? You know, you find that sort of ridiculous, because this is the same bank that you've been going to for a million years. They know everything about you. They could build a code halo around you, but they're not. So what if enterprises, any enterprise, whether you're a bank, whether you're a museum, whether you're a gallery, whether you're an airline, anybody could pull together data to create the code halo around people coming into the physical space or the virtual space? What if you could do that? Well, you could. We think you could. We think that you should. And we think that you must. We think that this is becoming really the crucial differentiating factor at the heart of reaching that goal of having that next generation differentiated digital customer experience. You know, enterprises have got to focus on seeing the customer through the code halo model, letting the customer see it, creating personalization to serve markets of one, make meaning from the metadata as much as the transaction data, and that's a key that Jit's going to come on to talk to you about in a moment, this notion of how do you really create personalization and how do you leverage digital asset management to do that. How do you supplement the transaction with the experience? Again, big organizations have traditionally focused on the transaction, but it's really the experience that we're all interested in as individual consumers. And how do they change the static sales process from always be closing, that's the sort of traditional sales mantra, to always be suggesting, which is really the Amazon or the Netflix or the Pandora mantra. That's really the new game as we see halos begin to reshape lots and lots of different aspects of the way that big businesses work. So the new mission for people in business driven by next generation technology, the new mission, if you want to choose to accept it, and you can all whistle the theme tune to yourselves there, is to reimagine code, to reimagine commerce, to really build code halos, which we think is going to be the crucial factor going forward. At this crossroads where the decisions we make today are going to be the decisions that really set the future path for the next few years. So look, I'm going to pause there and hand over to Jit, who's going to talk more now about the role of digital asset management within this. I'm obviously sticking around for the rest of the webinar, and we'll happily take some questions if you want to know more about code halos. You can check out a book, and there's also an app version of that. And we'd also love to welcome you to come to the Collaboratory, which is our office in New York City, where we invite clients to come in and really work with us in a very collaborative way to figure out what the future of their work is based on some of the ideas I've been talking about today. So let me pause there, and I think we're going to hand it over to Jit, and he's going to take it from there. Jit, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ben. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us the what and the why. You know, what are we talking about when we talk about code halos, and more importantly, the why. You know, why do we care? Why it's so super important to us as enterprises and businesses in the marketplace today? So really appreciate you taking the time. I'd remind and reiterate for everyone the message that Sandeep gave when we kicked off this overall activity, the webinar, to please, the attendees, to please put the questions in the chat room. If you put them in there, then Sandeep and our other folks, Jeanette, who are helping us with the event, will capture those questions, and then at the end of the session, we will go ahead and answer as many or all of those questions as time permits. So I'm going to go ahead and start the session. Sandeep, if you would give me control.
Yeah, over to you, Jit. You have control now.
Great. Thank you. All right. Don't think I do. So why don't you just go ahead and click a slide, Sandeep? We'll make this faster. So if we look at the next slide, what we're going to be talking about is basically the role of code halos in DAM, or DAM's role in code halos, I should say. And really, if you want to think about it, Ben did a fantastic job of talking about the what and the why, and I'm really going to talk to you about the how. So how would you do this? How would you look at code halos, and what does a DAM do to help you really make that a code halo successful, and where do you get started? So next slide, please. If you think about the nature of the universe as Ben has described it, it's a new era where the virtual and the physical worlds have collided or overlapped or become one, if you will. And as Ben noted, in this new world order, the key is having a personalized digital experience, knowing who Ben is, knowing who your customer is, and being able to take that knowledge and information and to personalize the customer's experience as a result of that insight. That's what's key. That's what makes the code halo so powerful, whether it's a taxicab application or Amazon or any other solution. It's the key is personalization of that experience. That's where the power comes from. Next slide, please. If you think about what really drives that personalization or that insight, that personalization, it's really what the customers are telling us. It's the data that they're providing. It's all of their actions and traffic and web movement and searches and preferences and all of those little points of information. That consumer data is what really provides that insight for the personalization. I know that you're in LA. I know that you like to work out. I know that you like to go to the gym. So therefore, if I see a deal for gym material or clothes, I'm going to send it to you. Why? Because I know that's what you like. How do I know that? Because of all the data that you've provided me that gives me the insight for personalization. By the way, I'm speaking of myself there for a moment. Next slide, please. And if you think about what those insights mean, they're really all about providing to our customers the marketing materials in a way that's contextually relevant. It's not necessarily the case that you're changing dramatically your marketing message, although in some instances you often are, because with the context, with the insight, you actually can target that message more accurately than you can in terms of blasting it out. Ben gave you the perfect example with Progressive Insurance. By targeting the rates for drivers based on their individual behavior, you have the insight to know exactly how to target that customer with both the cost basis and the marketing to say, hey, you don't have to be one of an actuarially relevant million people. You can be individualized yourself. So the data leads to analytics, which provides a profile, which then results in hyper-personalization, which results in the ability to have that context-driven marketing, which makes it that much more successful. Marketing is not marketing if it's there when I need it, then it's value add. Otherwise, it's a commercial that I skip. Otherwise, it's a banner ad that I ignore. Otherwise, it's the thing that I don't want. But when you have that context-driven connection between the customer and the insight that's based on what you know about them, that leads to success. That leads to a hyper-personalized experience where you have the code halo and the customer looks at it and says, fantastic, that is exactly what I'm looking for when I'm looking for it. That's the difference. That's exactly how you make a code halo relevant and pertinent for the individual, is to have that insight to drive the context-driven solution or marketing or pitch. Next slide, please. If you think about how you're going to deliver that personalized message to the customer, how you're going to be the Progressive of your universe, how you're going to be the Apple or Amazon in your industry, your vertical, your market segment, it's really going to be driven by integration, because the organizations need data and technology, and the insights that are driven by those data and technologies to connect the customers and consumers to that digital brand experience. And all of this information, typically today, will live in a multitude of systems, multitude of silos, multitude of enterprise applications that may do different things in the different parts of the business. The point solutions are siloed technology. So it's the ability to integrate all of these pieces of information you know about the customer into a unified experience to give them that personalized, marketing-driven approach. And if you think about it, if you look at your customers today, the knowledge and information about them, the orders that they're placing, the website that they're going to, the mobile app that they're perhaps looking at, their overall customer experience after they get the products, the potential repurchase of those products, all of those activities happen in multiple systems today, whether it's an ERP for processing the application, it's a finance package for charging and billing, it's a website, web content management software, or maybe it's a web app that nobody knows anything about and is definitely not connected to the rest of your enterprise application infrastructure. So it's the key in order to personalize that information for that customer, that experience for that customer. You need to really integrate all of these elements and bring it together into that unified whole so that when your customer has that personalized experience, they're actually able to look at it and say, this is exactly what I need. Ben talked about this, but the bank. And so when you walk into that bank or look at the ATM, you get asked what language. And you would obviously assume that they knew who you were, and why would you be wrong in assuming that? However, the bank systems are not integrated. They cannot give you that personalized messaging and marketing because it's not there. And that's exactly what we're talking about. There's many aspects of a business that are not integrated in order to provide that unified customer experience, that bang for the buck that the customer is looking for. Next slide. So if you think about what makes an integrated experience so impactful, it's the ability to have that digital experience encompass the design of what they're looking for, the overall strategy, how are you going to reach that customer, and what are going to be the elements of that customer's approach. What are the foundational technologies? What are the components that are going to allow me to grab the information in order to be able to personalize the experience for the customer? For example, taking your ATM example, why couldn't the ATM camera, which we know actually is there and utilized substantially by the bank for security purposes, why couldn't that have a certain amount of facial recognition technology, the ability to recognize who you are, so when you walk up to the ATM, you can say, hi, Jit, or hi, Ben. Would you like to do the last transaction you did last time when you were at this ATM? There's no reason the foundational technologies cannot be built that allow that to happen. And last but not least, the back-end processes and systems in order to support this overall digital experience. The integration of all of these elements is what's pivotal for making an impactful marketing experience. It's what makes it possible to have that wow, aha, awesome moment, right? And if you're thinking about that's what you're trying to do in the enterprise, and you're the CMO or your organization's working with your CMO, this is exactly the challenge that they're facing. Next slide, please. As they're going to market and looking at what they're dealing with, They're managing customer experiences across brands, geographies, languages, agencies or partners, channels, looking at web and mobile and all these channels that didn't exist. This is no longer your grandfather's channel strategy of print, on outdoor advertising, TV, radio. This is not that world. And so the CMOs are really looking for an impactful solution for how they can make this code halo happen successfully, how they can be the Amazon or Apple or the Progressive of their industry so that they're getting that experience and their customers are getting that experience, and more importantly, the monetization of all of those customer streams is happening. These are the challenges that your CMO, the marketing organization, is facing. Not just the CMO and the marketing organization, but as the customer-facing part of the organization, they are often given the mission objective charter of ensuring that there's a smooth and flawless customer experience. It also involves operations. It involves the entire organization. They say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes an enterprise to run a business, not just marketing. But if you think about where the CMO is focused on, how the CMO is thinking about code halos and how they can make it happen, this is where their struggle is. How do they have that solution that allows them to make these impactful experiences for their consumers when they're struggling with these challenges across the board? Next slide, please. If you think about the approach that they're taking and the way that they're able to drive all of these customized experiences, the backbone, if you will, of a digital customer experience to enable a successful code halo implementation, a successful personalization effort, you need a single source of truth. You need a place you can go to, a repository where you can find all of your materials and all of the content and all of the information for personalization that you're actually going to use to drive that experience in a way that's successful for the marketing organization. In other words, DAM as a single source of truth for the marketing digital deluge that they're facing is really the solution, the foundational technology solution to manage digital customer experiences. Without a central repository, how are you going to manage an image, a campaign, an experience across multiple geographies with multiple languages? How do you know that you have the right version of that asset in the right language, in your geography that you're operating in? How do you bring in different parts in your ecosystem, ad agencies and others working with you in one geography versus another geography? How do you bring in the stakeholders that need to approve and review, like perhaps legal? How do you do all of that without a foundational technology like digital asset management that makes it all happen and brings it all together and provides that the organization with the tools to make that engaging, personalized experience? How do you personalize without the elements with which to personalize it, right? You can't. And that's exactly where a digital asset management system comes in. Think of it as a foundational technology, a backbone technology for how to power a code halo, how to power that personalized experience for the customer. Next slide, please. So now I've told you how DAM relates to the code halos and to personalization. Now let's talk a little bit about how you actually harness the power of the DAM. What do you leverage the DAM to do as you engage on your journey of personalizing the customer's experience and really providing them that powerful, engaging activity so that they look at it and they go, yeah, this is a customer partnership, a business that I want to partner with and really be a part of. Next slide, please. If you look at the customer journey and their digital journey in particular, there are multiple touch points during the course of this journey, whether it's understanding their behavior, looking at how you can remarket that, looking at the dynamic content to deliver that remarketed message, taking advantage of or understanding their sentiment to drive channel efficiency, and then finally to do the performance and effectiveness reporting so that you're able to ascertain how to drive that customer journey to the successful conclusion. If you think about all of those elements of a customer journey from beginning to end, those elements and more, they're not just those, there's certainly more in a typical journey, you really need a centralized platform, and DAM is the technology that you would use to store all of this information, all of that metadata, all of that key information that tags Ben as being an individual that goes to Starbucks, that reads business books, that's really a wonk in this area. And so if you have an event or a seminar or a business leadership, thought leadership activity, you not only want Ben there, you're willing to comp Ben to go because of the impact it has on your organization and your event and activity. You know that because of the customer journey that you've seen for Ben as a part of your business and your enterprise. If you're Starbucks, you want Ben to come because of his luminary effect that it has on your brand and your business for an event that Starbucks driving. So that's an example of how you're really taking a customer journey and the data points in that customer journey and leveraging a DAM to make that all happen. Next slide, please. If you think about how you're going to look at your enterprise's marketing organization and what's the digital pivot, what's the platform that will allow you to pivot to meet the needs as you go, it's because you have an assetSERV or a DAM platform that's helping you with marketing automation, social tools, looking at ECM and looking at video tools, etc. All the elements that combine perhaps your ERP information, you're finding out information about who you sold it to, how you sold it to them, your CRM or your Salesforce automation information to help facilitate and drive that sale. All of these elements combined into one platform or one knowledge base, one single source of truth, if you will, is what enables a DAM to be an enterprise marketing organization's digital pivot. It's what allows you to get the insight and the intelligence. So if you think about a campaign or if you think about a marketing automation technology platform that will help you build a campaign and get it out to market, you want that campaign to be imbued with all the knowledge and input that you can. If a red banner ad was more successful than a blue one, you want to know that. If this offer is more appealing than that offer, you want to know that as well. More importantly, what offers has Ben or Jit been taken advantage of? You want that information as well, which you will get through your ERP or your CRM solution. So the combination of everything you have available in your toolbox for your marketing digital pivot, coupled with all of the insight you have from watching your code halos of your customers, the synergy of those two elements, the bringing of those two together using digital asset management platform is the how of the success of the code halo. Not just the how, the what and the why, but the how. Bringing those two components together, and that's why a DAM is a marketing organization's digital pivot. It brings those two together, connects the dots, if you will, between the information you have about the customer from your own internal systems, plus the information you have the customer from their code halo footprints, allows you to connect the dots and make that personalized experience for them moving forward. Next slide, please. If you think about how this works from a practical standpoint, in the center there you have the DAM system, you have the underlying technology. Because of the insights that you're getting and the information that you're made available to you, you're driving new innovations. You're putting out there new offers, you're putting out there new assets, you're putting out there new information, you're putting out there the things that will make those offers successful for everybody. If you look at what that means is you're going to be able to then take the omni-channel and the publishing and the marketing of that content and really push it out there in a way that will make it successful. In other words, you take that innovation, whether it's a new offer for a driver or a new type of content, and you put it out there in the community and the customers that you're targeting, which then accelerates the sales cycle because you're able to then accelerate the sales model. Customers are looking at that personalized content and saying, that's for me, that's what I want, that's what I was looking for. I'm an exercise nut, and I want that pair of shoes because it's going to make me that much faster or more efficient or less impact in my exercise regimen. And finally, all of this results in a decrease in time to market, which means you can accelerate the cycle again and again and again. It's a virtuous loop. It creates the ability to make that happen. So by leveraging that central source of truth, you're driving innovation, pushing that into the market, resulting in an accelerated sales cycle, which then allows you to reduce your time to market overall, making your business that much more efficient, that much more successful. That's exactly how you're doing this via the code halo using a DAM to drive that code halo or have that code halo effect. Next slide, please. So if you think of this as a horse race, and you're really looking at wanting to get the competitive advantage in this digital era, you want to use your DAM to power the code halo in your organization and how you as an organization drive successfully in the marketplace. Next slide, please. Last but not least, let's talk about how we're going to do this. Where do I start? Where does the journey begin for me as an enterprise, as an individual responsible, chartered with driving? A maturity assessment or a digital asset management maturity assessment is the first step in the journey towards the desired DAM solution, the desired code halo. That's a great first step to see what are my tools, what am I capable of today, where do I look, where do I rank, where am I at? The next slide, please. Our model for the maturity, for a digital asset management maturity for an organization, it's a pretty simple model. As Ben said, sometimes the simplest things are the most profound. It's really looking at your DAM capability versus your DAM strategy. And you have those that are nascent in the marketplace where they have really not a lot of adoption or implementation of a strategy or a platform, versus those that are emerging where they have some capabilities, but they're pretty siloed and don't necessarily look enterprise-wide and don't provide that integrated, unified view to enable that powerful personalization for the customer, versus those that are operational where they've got an enterprise solution, but they still haven't taken that power and leveraged it into delivering that personalized message for the customer, compared to those that are finally at the high end of the scale where they've optimally integrated the DAM platform to not only get all of the information that they can from both internal and external sources, so their internal code halos and external code halos for the customer, but then have now converted that into a powerful tool or vehicle to be able to message and communicate that out to the customer and the audience. And this is what Ben was talking about in his initial slide where he said 3 years' time from now, the desire is to go from a mediocre customer experience into a better or best customer experience in the marketplace. And this would be the platform for the how you would help make that happen, the technology and the tool set to help you make that happen. Next slide, please. So if you would like to and have a moment, if you go to assetSERV.com, you can take your DAM maturity assessment today. It's free. It takes a few moments, and it'll give you a roadmap, at least an initial step, as to how you can think about moving forward in the marketplace based on where you are today to help achieve that desired end state. And that's really what we have for you today. We really appreciate everyone's time. Last slide, please, and I will turn it over to you, Sandeep.
All right. Thank you, Jit, and thank you, Ben. So we have received a few questions from our audience today, and so we'll kick things off. The first question is, this is for you, Ben. It's from Bob Thompson, and so the question is Code Halos essentially about big data, or is it something more than that?
Yeah, big data is clearly a huge part of it. Big data sort of drives. A lot of people talk about data as being the new oil in business, and certainly big data is the fuel that drives this new idea forward. But as anybody knows, with a car, an automobile, it's not just oil. There's a lot of other elements as well. A lot of other elements of the mechanics you need as well. So it isn't just big data. It is important, but it isn't just big data. It's other elements of, as I said earlier on, the SMAC stack, social technology, mobile technology, cloud technology. It's also going to be increasingly integrated into the Internet of Things, as I touched on, as more and more things become smart and generate data, and then add into the personalization algorithm that you need to create and to be able to analyze and make sense of. So all of the underlying technology, all of the things that Jit's been talking around in terms of the digital assets management layer as being the sort of central repository of all of this data that you're collecting, and then being able to personalize and repurpose and and put into different form factors from a content management outreach engine perspective. All of these things are important, but clearly at the end of the day, you need that fuel, you need that data, so data is extraordinarily important.
Thank you, Ben. Our next question is from Karen Edward, and Jit, this is for you. How should DAM systems evolve to help enable code halos?
That's a great question. So I'm glad the question is phrased the way it is, which is presupposing that the DAM is going to help power your code halo. So thank you, Karen. There's a couple of different ways that the DAM system needs to evolve to really support leveraging the power of code halos, and Ben did a great job of explaining the power of those. The first thing, you have to integrate your DAM systems with your other enterprise technologies and solutions. Remember what I said, pulling together that personalized experience, that personalized code halo experience, requires a whole lot of data, and Ben just said that. And all of that has to come together in a place, a unified place where you can take advantage of that. And that's where the DAM is. So the short answer to your question is ensuring that the enterprise data, information, and architecture is integrated with the DAM solution, the DAM technology, the DAM platform, is the first step in being able to really power the successful code halo with the DAM. The second is ensuring that the processes, how your business looks at driving its internal systems and processes, align with taking advantage of that insight. It's all well and good to have the information, but if your marketing campaigns, if your marketing messages, if your approach to the customer doesn't reflect that personalization, if you just have that standard page or that standard policy and you haven't figured out a way to really create that customized experience, then it's for naught. And so making sure your processes and systems support that personalization and leverage the DAM to do so is the second most important part. And the third and final part is thinking about how you're going to look at the offering for the customer and offer them that unique experience. Progressive's figured it out. They'll give you a rate, as Ben said, they'll give you a rate so you don't subsidize the bad drivers because you're a good driver. So they figured out their model. What's your model, right? How are you going to create that differentiated customer experience that your DAM could then serve up to the customer? So those are the three things: integration with technology stacks, ensuring that the systems and processes reflect the advantage that you can take it, how to take advantage of your DAM for code halo, and last but not least, what's the catch? What's the hook? What are you going to give the customer that's going to give them that truly unique, personalized experience?
Thank you, Jit. We have a third question, and I believe, Ben, this one's for you. This is from Jeff Manka. And in your work with other clients, what are the key challenges that you see in building code halos, and what are your recommendations to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, no, another great question. I suppose I think about that in two ways. There's certainly clearly a lot of different technology challenges. Building these things is non-trivial. Leveraging a lot of the Jit's bringing to the table is certainly is important within that. I think the big thing that we've run into and seen a lot of clients sort of gravitate to in their thinking is the flip side, I suppose, of personalization is the whole debate around privacy and the whole, obviously, very complex and very rich and nuanced and at times fraught discussion around the trade-offs between personalization and privacy. I mean, it sometimes strikes me that, and in fact one of my colleagues in the Center for the Future of Work, Kevin Benedict, did some research recently which was very interesting that showed that people are very, very comfortable to sign up for loyalty cards and reward cards, but when they then asked about, are you comfortable to share your data to create a code halo, they sort of throw their hands up in horror. And there's clearly a bit of a sort of a discontinuity there, a bit of a paradox there. You know, people are comfortable in the world of loyalty cards and, you know, frequent flyer cards, blah, 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 to share a lot of information, and we've been doing that, you know, gradually over a long period of time. But when you confront this idea of a code halo and well, some people think that's creepy. Some people kind of get freaked out a little bit about that. And I think when you look at the way that very heavily regulated organizations, you know, perhaps banks most notably, think about these trends, they're almost nervous in trying to explore where the edges of these dynamics are, where the boundaries are, where the sort of pitfalls are. Now, we think that the debate can be overcome. We think these sort of fears or concerns around the dark side of the halo, as we put it, are overcomable. We think these are hurdles that, you know, organizations can overcome. And in the Code Halos book, we write in some detail and at some length about tactical steps that organizations can take to overcome them, to move their customers beyond the concerns. And clearly one of the primary aspects of that is you know, to paraphrase the old Google phrase, you know, don't be evil. And if you abuse and misuse data that people are providing to you, then in this world of, you know, greater and greater online transparency, in a world of you know, Twitter, where, you know, Twitter fails can happen and go around the world in the blink of an eye, companies have a great incentive to act ethically and act well and not abuse information. But these are obviously very nuanced, sensitive areas in which companies have to move cautiously and in a very reasoned, considered way. So that whole kind of privacy debate, and then the overspill into the NSA and Edward Snowden and all these things, that to a lot of people, again, is such a hot button that they kind of don't want to go near that. That's one of the big dynamics. But again, we think, stepping back from everything that Jit and I have been talking about really this on the session, is that these are, you know, almost a sort of inevitable trends. This is almost a sort of manifest destiny, to put it in a sort of grandiose way. Nobody is putting the internet back into the bottle anytime soon. Nobody is uninventing any of the technology that we're increasingly leveraging to run our organizations. So the challenge for executives, for managers in organizations, is not to ignore these trends and sort of pretend they're going to go away. They're not. It's to, as I said earlier on, mitigate risk, but also leverage the incredible opportunity going forward.
Thank you, Ben. That was indeed insightful. All right, so we do not have any other questions at the moment, so that concludes our session for today. So once again, thank you to our speakers, Jit and Ben, for your inputs today, and to a wonderful audience for making this an interactive session. If you have any additional questions or comments, you have the contact information of Jit and Ben on your screen here, so please feel free to give them a call or drop a note. And we look forward to meeting you all at DAM LA on November 12 and 13. We're offering a $100 discount via the Cognizant 100 code that you can use to register. So that's all from the Cognizant and assetSERV teams today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.